It's the top 5 underrated mono black commanders.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to Commander Countdown. This is the series where we go over your top 5s for various commander themes. And on today's episode, we are going to be doing the most underrated black commanders. But before we get there, we wanted to take a minute to tell you guys our honorable mentions that didn't make it onto the list. Veggie, what is your honorable mention for underrated black commander?
It's my favorite brand of yogurt, Phage the Untouchable.
How is Phage underrated?
Because you can't play it. So, Phage the Untouchable is very strong because if you can hit a player with it, they lose the game. That's pretty good.
Check.
You just lose the game yourself if you cast it from your hand. If you cast Phage from anywhere other than your hand, you lose the game.
So how do you get it out of the command zone?
It's tricky, but there are ways to do it. You can use Command Beacon, which just puts it straight from the command zone into your hand, and then you can cast it just fine.
Okay. Platinum Angel.
Yes, you can use Platinum Angel, and there are some other effects in black that are liches something or others that stop you from losing the game.
Very specific.
Yes, very specific. And then one other very specific option is Torpor Orb, which stops creature ETBs. So that trigger for me losing the game doesn't happen at all. Oh,
you could just suggest that your opponent play Elishnorn.
Yes.
That would work.
Yeah, see?
Great.
And everybody's playing Elishnorn, so that's why this is underrated, because surely no one would say anything about that if you were, I'm just going to roll up Phage onto your Elishnorn deck. That's fine.
Okay, so I will agree that this is underrated if you can tell me that you've killed 3 people or more with this.
Yeah, so what is your choice for your NerdGirl pick that did not make the list?
That's what I thought. Okay, so the real underrated mono black commander is Tinybones. Tinybones, the Trinket Thief. I adore this card. Anytime an opponent discards a card at the end of your turn, you can lose a life and draw a card. But you can also pay 6 and make each opponent with no cards in hand take 10 damage. So this is going to work very, very well with all of your really cute cards like Waste Not, make a bunch of 2/2s. For a thing that your commander already wants to be doing, or cards like Siphon Mind. Is that the other one?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Siphon Mind. That's the right card. I keep getting those two things confused. So every opponent discards and you get to draw more cards, which is just more discard fuel. He's so cute.
It is surprisingly easy to empty someone's hand.
I mean, for me, it's not even about like emptying their hands. I played this a bunch like in Brawl too. And it's just the incremental value you get from making them discard and you draw. And even if you never get to trigger that final ability, I'm pretty happy with it and still winning games, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So much fun.
Yeah. And that magical commander word each end step means for 2 mana, you are possibly drawing 3 extra cards, 4 extra cards per round.
Yeah. If you have any instant speed, make your opponents discard, or if your opponents are making themselves discard or each other, it's great.
Yeah, a million different ways.
Now that we've gone over our honorable mentions, let's go ahead and get into your top 5. And coming in at number 5, we have Ashnod Flesh Mechanist.
So 1/1 Death Touch. Whenever it attacks, you can sacrifice a creature, and then you make a Power Stone, and you can pay 5, exile a creature from your graveyard, and make a 3/3 colorless zombie artifact creature token.
Yeah, I definitely think this is an underrated card because it's a 1-drop. It doesn't do anything super powerful, but for a 1-drop that gets you a lot of value over a long period of time, you don't have to do a ton right away.
Yeah, there's so much that you can do with it. You've got artifact synergy, you've got sacrifice, you've got weird graveyard stuff. You could do this, you could do zombies with this.
And you're just getting a ton of value because your 1-drop is trading up massively over and over again, just getting sheer advantage on the board that way as well. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that this is definitely an underrated commander.
Yeah, give it Viridian Longbow, give the ability to ping, and then you have a kill every turn. I'm also always very impressed with commanders that you can pay. Commanders that you can cast for 1 mana are always very good. They don't have to have the strongest abilities, but that enables so many things. Anything that cares about a commander being on the board, or just that the strategy that you've built your deck around starts immediately.
I mean, yes, but also take that with a grain of salt from someone who dresses up as Ragavan on a weekly basis.
Yeah, if anything, that should support my argument. It's big good.
I mean, I don't know as a base rule if a 1 mana legendary creature makes for a good commander. I think in this case, and maybe in Ragavan's case, it's okay, but
no, every single 1 mana legendary creature makes for a good commander, period. And there are no exceptions. And I know I don't have to worry about any comments saying otherwise. Every single one.
Excellent. Let's go ahead and move on to number 2. Oh, sorry. Move on to number 4. Wrong direction. We have Gonti, Lord of Luxury.
This is a 2/3, also with Death Touch. When it enters the battlefield, you look at the top 4 of an opponent's deck. You exile one of them face down, and that is a card that you can now play whenever you want with mana of any color.
It's important to note that even if Gonti leaves play, you can still cast the cards that are exiled because, Gonti himself doesn't have the ability the cards that are exiled do. So it is a ton of card advantage over the span of a long game. It's kind of a small body. A 2/3 for 4 is not exactly exciting, but when it's stapled onto, the best card in your opponent's, the top 4 cards, that's a lot of value.
Right. And it is an ETB, so you have a lot of tricky stuff you can do with it. There's not a lot of flicker in black, but you could do Sword of Hearth and Home. You have all of the black spells that bring your creature back when it dies. And yeah, I mean, the 2/3 body I'm pretty okay with it if it has Death Touch.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that this is very underrated because I think the card advantage is pretty powerful, but when you compare it to things like Shieldred, it's not super flashy. So, I mean, that definitely makes sense that this is not in the top 20 mono black commanders. That definitely makes for a solid underrated card in my book.
Yes. It took a moment for that to process. And it was just blue screen for a second. I was like,
reboot.
Boop. Yes, it does make for a very underrated commander, Gonti. Coming in at number 3, underrated black commanders, Acererak the Archlich.
This 5/5, when it comes into play, if you haven't completed the Tome of Annihilation adventure, you get to bounce it back to your hand and venture into the dungeon. Now, it doesn't say you have to venture into that specific dungeon, so you can just continue to cast it and go through different dungeons, which makes this card pretty unique. But once you do get to keep it onto the battlefield, it's a 5/5 that when it attacks, you make a 2/2 zombie for each opponent unless that opponent sacrifices their own creature.
Yes. I read the Tome of Annihilation a while back. It's a great read. A little heavy on.
At first, I thought you were saying something serious, and then I was like, "Oh, it's Veggie."
Mm-hmm.
I like this commander. I know that you do get to, you lose a lot of the infinite combos being a mono black deck because it pairs very well with some other colors. But I still think that there's a lot you can do here.
As soon as I see this card, the first thing I think about are, oh, this can go infinite with some things. But none of those are in mono black. So that may cause the rest of the table to a threat assess you a little aggressively.
That's true. Now, you can also talk to your opponents at the start of the game and let them know that there are no infinite combos in your deck. Now, I think there is 1 or 2 still in mono black, but I mean, I prefer to play without infinite combos anyway, and I prefer if my table does as well. So To me, that's not a problem. But you're right. I think that maybe people are a little bit too scared of this in this particular build versus if it's in another deck that's multicolor.
Yeah. It's still, though, like, human beings, so the nature of people. If I, like, drop OG Atraxa as my commander, I'm like, oh, no. But it's like, it doesn't do, like, those things. Like, don't worry about it. It's not a scary one. Like, I don't have those things in it. You're still going to be like...
Murder.
That's going to be a problem.
Kill it dead.
Right.
Yeah, that's definitely true. But all things considered, I like this card as a commander, and I really like venturing into the dungeon. It's one of my favorite mechanics. I think it's super cool. But I'm also a big D&D nerd, so I might be a little too high on the mechanic.
It's a fun time, and I would be scared that then I would have to like actually play good Magic to make this work.
But you oftentimes don't play good Magic and don't make it work anyway. So what's the difference?
Because sometimes I can play not good Magic and it happens to work. And I think this one does not do that either.
Fair enough. Let's go ahead and jump to number 2 on the community poll list. And that is Horobi Death's Wail.
This is a 4/4 flyer.
Beautiful.
This is a 4/4 flyer. Whenever a creature becomes the target of a spell or ability, destroy that creature.
I'm very high on this. I think that this is my favorite on the list. Not particularly close. I think there's a ton of really cool things that you can do with this. I want to be icy manipulating all of my opponent's things and killing them dead.
Also, folks, date yourself with one card that you think is cool with Horobi Death's Wail. If it's Icy Manipulator, then check your knees.
What? What? Icy Manipulator is reprinted all the time in Limited.
When was the last time it was reprinted?
Oh, no. Now we got to look it up.
I think it's Dominaria.
That's not that long ago.
2018.
Okay, if you think 2018 is old, how long have you been playing Magic?
Okay. Answer this first, though. Was it the Dominaria Icy Manipulator that you were thinking of?
It was all of them. I've seen it a bunch of times. Mm-hmm. Are you qualified to be on this show if you think 2018 is old?
Am I qualified to be on the show, period? Look. Cut it. This is a very strong effect, but it affects both people. It affects everybody. I can kill your Horobi. I can kill your Horobi with my own Icy Manipulator, which I think is a cool card that goes along with this ability.
But you're not going to put that in your deck because this deck will be built to take advantage of those things. Your opponent has good spells that are going to kill your commander 1-for-1 no matter what anyway. So that's fine. They can target it and remove your creature just like normal. The only difference is you get a bunch of sort of low impact, cheap things that give you some cool card advantage like Icy Manipulator to take advantage of.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't like giving my opponents things that help them to kill me, even if it doesn't help them that much.
And there's like a ton of spells that tap, make a target creature black or artifact, and then it dies. It's so cool. Okay, this will be the card for this top 5 that we are very, very torn on. Chat, we want your opinions. Let us know, is this a dope card or is Veggie just think I'm very old? And yes, I said that on purpose.
It doesn't look like a whale at all either.
What is wrong with you? Okay, let's go ahead and move on to number 1. And your choice for that top spot is Syr Konrad the Grim.
What a card. It's the text box is really all we care about here. Whenever another creature dies or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Syr Konrad deals 1 damage to each opponent. You can pay 2 to make everybody mill a card.
Yeah, and this is a card that you see in a lot of Commander games, even if it's not the Commander. We actually saw this featured on Decked Out, episode 8, when we played our favorite Planeswalkers. So if you guys want to see this card in action, you can check it out there.
Yeah, whoever put that in their deck must have been very smart
Yes.
and handsome.
Sure.
Clip it.
I like the card. I think it was very fun and limited. But yeah, playing this lets you do a lot of really cool like self-mill mechanics, lets you get cards out of your graveyard. You can remove your own graveyard, which is really neat. So it kind of synergizes very well with everything Black wants to do, whether that's putting the cards into the graveyard or taking them back out when you reanimate and do really sweet stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's your finisher in the command zone that you're just like, great, am I ready to win? Here's 5 mana and I'll do whatever thing that kills all the creatures or removes my graveyard or any of the other things that this card does.
Yeah, there's just a land that removes graveyards.
Yeah.
That's quite the combo. So I'm sure there are a lot of pieces, and that is a great way to make this simply an uncommon creature be quite powerful, even though, you might not notice it at a glance with your, if you're not thinking about all those really cool synergies.
Yeah. Most people can identify that this card is real good. So it's gonna draw some hate. You will have it die often if you're not playing it and then doing big stuff with it right away.
Well, we'll just use all that, Black protection that you talked about in the last episode.
Look, you sacrifice an instant speed and then you don't have to worry about it.
That is it for your top 5. And if you guys would like to put your votes in for our next episode, make sure you guys check the link in the description below and get in your votes, because these top 5 lists are all built around you guys, and we definitely want to know what you guys think.
Yes, I've been sitting in this chair for a while. I'm going to need some icy hot manipulator. We've covered your top 5 underrated mono black commanders, and now we're going to take a look at the deck submitted by our patron Juan, which also fits that category. The commander for this deck is Mari the Killing Quill.
Mari is a 3/2 for 3 that says whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, put a hit counter on it. And anytime a mercenary, assassin, or rogue deals combat damage to a player, you can remove a hit counter from one of those creatures, and you get to draw a card and make some treasures. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the list that was submitted, and then we will also take a look around and see if we can come up with some other ideas or suggestions for the deck list.
Okay, let's see. Moving down into artifacts. Some standard stuff.
Thieves' Tools is really good for this deck because you want to make sure you're connecting with those assassins and rogues, and what better way to do it than Thieves' Tools?
Yeah, and it's very flavorful as well.
Yeah, and it's a cheap include. It makes this deck pretty reasonable.
Right. And you've got like kind of a second copy with Whisper Silk Cloak to also allow you to get in really easily. I mentioned this earlier in the video, the Viridian Longbow. A lot of the rogues and assassins happen to have Death Touch, and I'm guessing that that's what it's in here for.
It's also important to know, I think, because I was skimming, Mari does give Death Touch to all of them as well. And I do believe I skimmed through that and didn't say it. Forge is a pretty interesting one.
Yeah. This kind of hits a bunch of synergies with Mari because is a rogue, has evasion with Menace, and gets bigger for the amount of treasures that you have, which are going to be stacking up for Mari's secondary ability anyway. So that's kind of everything.
Man, when you spread out the creature types across 3 different types of creatures, mercenaries, assassins, and rogues, there are so many cool options. I'm looking at this and it's just like the greatest hits of black creatures. And yeah, this is looking pretty sweet.
Mm-hmm. Now, I was a little worried initially that it wouldn't have a good way to finish the game out. But Marionette Master here makes sure that, has the game gone on for a little while? We've like done some damage, but I have this stack of treasures. I can just convert that all straight up into damage. So that's a finisher for sure.
Also, just straight card advantage can be pretty detrimental when you're running huge cards like Rankle, Master of Pranks.
That's true. Also, you get like the nice double dip on synergy here. Is a rogue and causes your opponent's creatures to die.
Yeah,
and has evasion.
Bitter Blossom makes rogues.
Flying rogues.
Yeah,
flying rogues.
Flying evasive rogues, similar to Rankle. They're going to get in. You're going to make sure you get those triggers. That is a lot.
You know what else makes rogues? Black market connections. Because the tokens are have changeling, so they are rogues.
Wow.
All right, and yeah, here we go. All of the removal.
Pretty standard removal package. Nothing too synergistic that I'm seeing.
A big on Vonus Hunger that can be a bunch of creatures dying at the same time, and then I think your typical suite of lands,
except for the Rogue's Passage, which is very, very synergy. And I'll just straight flavor win.
Mm-hmm. It's their passage.
Yeah, absolutely. So far, I think that this deck is really sweet. I will say one of the first decks I built as a kid, and I know you've already called me old, but this is real old, is I did have an assassin deck with a 4 of...
Royal Assassin.
Yes, Royal Assassin back in, oh boy. Yeah, I'm very old. And that was like, type 2 or whatever. Like, it was.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it depends on what reprint of Royal Assassin to see how old you are. Because
like
there's the
one of the
8th
first
edition,
ones,
or like the original from whatever it's from.
It was old. Okay, so we've taken a quick look at the deck. Overall, I'm loving the synergy. It does a lot, and I do think Mari is a pretty sweet commander. Let's go ahead and take a look at EDH Rec and see what types of upgrades or different synergies we might have missed.
All right, EDH Rec page 4, Mari the Killing Quill. Well, yeah, that's a fresh new one that I definitely would put in here. Mirkwood Bats. If you haven't heard of it already, you'll get beat by it. Mari makes a bunch of treasures. It's 2 per hit counter. And those are going to deal damage on the way in and on the way out if you have Mirkwood Bats on the board. And
also, not just Mari makes the treasures. A lot of the rogues just incidentally make treasures, which we have like Horde Robber, which was in the deck, as well as
the Grim Hireling. Yeah, actually, I think pretty much everything we've seen here, besides the bats, was in.
We did see Opportunist and Massacre Girl, so it does look like our deck submission did indeed cover most of these like premium hits for the deck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything here has been in it. Didn't get to point out the Varagoth before, but I didn't realize that's a rogue, so that's great.
Did we see Gonti in the deck list? I think that would be a really cool include that would help get a bunch of card advantage. And it was on the top 5 list for powerful, underrated black commanders in the first place.
Mm-hmm. And you get all the bonuses that we said from before. Like maybe you have limited options in mono black. This gives you access to all of your opponent's decks. So that could be a nice one. Plus the Death Touch to combo with some of the other, the Death Touch synergy that's in the deck as well.
Nice. Okay, taking a look at our instance, I did see Deadly Dispute in the deck, and it had a really good, full suite of mono black removal, as we would expect to see.
Yeah, this looks like all your typical kill spells.
Nothing here that jumps out to me as like leading synergy, though.
Mm-hmm. I'm a sucker for a good sudden spoiling. I just a card that you can run in your mono black decks. It's always a good time, except for anybody else.
Yeah, I think I've cast that card once or twice. It's pretty fun. Whip of Erebos is a pretty cool include because a lot of your cards have EGB triggers like Gonti and some other ones that possibly make treasures, and they just have Death Touch. So you just want to keep recurring your stuff over and over again. It allows you to run your smaller stuff in. They have to eventually be blocked, but then you trade up essentially with that Death Touch, bring them back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, I'm seeing some like equipment that would be helpful here, like Mask of Memory, just to give you some extra card draw because you have a bunch of creatures that are getting in.
Yeah.
Oh, Cranial Planing. I don't remember if we saw this in the deck list.
I mean, it's definitely cute. I don't think that the deck will generate enough treasure to make cranial plating worth it.
Really? I would say definitely. Like, even if you like, because you're getting 2 treasure per hit counter that you're removing, and you have a bunch of evasive creatures, so they're not really concerned about their toughness. Even if this is just giving me an extra like 4 damage for the cost of 2 2 mana and 1 to equip, that seems like a win to me.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like, how many are you realistically making in this sort of early game? I guess if the game is going long and sort of board stally, then you'll certainly have enough. But in my head, it's like, okay, well, you get, 2 or 3 creatures to die, and then you need to connect, and you need to then make those treasures, and then you need to not use those treasures. Personally, I don't think cranial plating is where I'm at with this, without a ton of other like artifact synergies built in, but happy to be wrong.
Oh, Cover of Darkness. It's a card I always forget about. That's ideal here. Although I guess not quite as effective, since this is like creature type matters, but it's not all the same type. It's 3 different types. So you could give like a third of your creature's fear.
Yeah, I'm sure the deck kind of leans heavily in one direction or another, and it just kind of has some of the best of the other archetypes. So I would venture to say that you could still get quite a bit of use out of this. All right, I think that basically covers it. And honestly, it does look like Juan did hit all of those like really key important parts that Mari wants to be having in the deck.
Mm-hmm.
That wraps up our Patreon deck tech. Now, if you guys enjoyed this, make sure you guys head on over to our Patreon like Juan did to submit your very own list. It's a great way to support the channel and help us create more content like this.
And of course, thank you to the exclusive sponsor of this series, EDHREC, for making this all possible.
Yeah, without your guys' website, I think I would struggle to build deck lists a lot more.
And it also lets me know what good cards to not use.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Thanks everybody for sticking around for another episode. We'll see you next time on Commander Countdown.
Oops.
And we will see you next time on
Commander Countdown.